Welcome to this explainer. I am so glad you're here. Today, we're basically going to step into the shoes of an inner scientist to tackle something, well, pretty much all of us struggle with. We're breaking down the fascinating neuroscience behind our digital habits. We'll look at exactly how our brains are wired and, more importantly, how to use that exact same wiring to master our digital downtime and finally break free from that endless, mindless scrolling. Let me ask you something that I'm sure is going to hit close to home. Why do we always check our feeds? Like, even when we're actively trying to focus on something else, why do our minds just wander? Why do we get that sudden, almost magnetic urge to check Twitter, open an email, or just start swiping? Look, if you find yourself constantly fighting this urge, I need you to know right now. This constant distraction, it's not a personal failing. You don't just have a fundamentally weak attention span. What you're actually experiencing is an evolutionary glitch. Okay, let's dive right into this. The research tells us that when we try to force ourselves to pay attention and, ignore our devices, we aren't just fighting some bad modern habit. We are actually fighting one of the most evolutionarily conserved learning processes currently known in science. We're talking about deep-seated survival mechanisms, stuff that literally kept our Asian ancestors alive, that are now being entirely hijacked by the little rectangles in our pockets. Let's look at exactly how this happens in Section 1, the digital distraction trap, and how our brains get hijacked. So at its core, our nervous system learns through really basic positive and negative reinforcement. Historically, this was all about survival, right? See food, eat food, feel good, repeat. Pretty simple. But eventually, our incredibly smart brains realized, hey, the next time you feel bad, why don't you try doing something that feels good so you'll feel better? And boom, that is exactly how this unhealthy habit loop is born. Instead of actual hunger triggering us to eat, an emotional signal, like feeling stressed, sad, or literally just bored, acts as the trigger. The behavior, pulling out our phone and scrolling social media. And the reward is that really quick, fleeting feeling of relief. Trigger, behavior, reward. And every single time we do it, that habit just gets stronger. Which brings us to Section 2, why willpower usually fails, and the limits of cognitive control. We all know the feeling. You tell yourself, I'm not going to look at my phone. But white-knuckling it takes a massive amount of mental energy. We're relying on the prefrontal cortex. That's the youngest part of our brain. It's the intellectual part that cognitively knows we should stop scrolling, stop stressing, and get back to work. It really tries its hardest to help us out. But when we get stressed out or tired, the stress response kicks in like a blaring fire alarm. And guess what? The prefrontal cortex is literally the first part of our brain that goes offline. Right when we need our logic the absolute most, it shuts down, and we helplessly fall right back into our oldest, most deeply ingrained habits. So how do we fix it? Here's the massive paradigm shift in Section 3, the curiosity hack in achieving visceral disenchantment. Think about this. What if, instead of fighting our brains with exhausting willpower, we just got really, really curious about the craving itself? To show you how incredibly powerful this is, let me share this hilarious but honestly profound anecdote from a mindfulness study on quitting smoking. Researchers told the smokers, go ahead and smoke, but just be really curious about what it's actually like when you do. Well, one participant reported back that mindful smoking smells like stinky cheese and tastes like chemicals. Yuck! Just by paying close attention, she realized the very habit she was craving actually tasted terrible. That exact yuck moment is the difference between knowing in your head and knowing in your bones. Cognitive control is just intellectually knowing a habit is bad, which, as we know, totally goes offline when we're stressed out. But visceral disenchantment, that's feeling it deeply in your bones. When you pay close, curious attention to what mindlessly scrolling actually feels like in that exact moment, maybe it makes your eyes tired, maybe you actually feel kind of empty or even more anxious afterward, you become viscerally disenchanted with the behavior. The spell is basically broken. You don't have to forcefully restrain yourself anymore. You simply just become less interested in doing it. So what is physically happening in our heads when we make this shift? Let's dive into Section 4, inside the habit brain, and how we rewire the network. When scientists studied the brains of experienced meditators practicing this exact kind of curiosity, they found some really fascinating activity in specific neural regions. The first big key term here is the default mode network. This is a neural network of self-referential processing. Basically, it's the network that governs our wandering mind. Whenever you aren't intensely focused on a specific task and your mind just starts drifting, or, you mindlessly reach into your pocket to grab your phone without even realizing you did it, your default mode network is highly active,
just running those old unconscious habit loops in the background.
Now, right within that network lies a very specific region called the posterior cingulate cortex. Current hypotheses actually suggest that this region doesn't just light up because of the craving itself. No, it specifically activates when we get caught up in the craving, like when we really get sucked in, when we let the urge completely take us for a ride. It is literally the neurological signature of losing control to the distraction. But here is the absolute game changer, the major neuroscience breakthrough. Curiosity quiets the craving center. The research showed that when we let go and step out of the process, not by forcing the urge away, but simply by being curiously aware of what is happening in our body and mind, this exact brain region, the posterior cingulate cortex, visibly quiets down. Curiosity literally acts as a neurological circuit breaker. It's amazing. Now that we know the science, let's actually put it into practice. Welcome to Section 5, your mindful detox guide where you become an inner scientist. We are going to use the exact same triggers that drive us to distraction, but we're flipping the script to step out of our unhealthy loops. Your training starts right in your daily life. Here are 3 highly specific moments where you can practice this new mindful curiosity, starting today. Number 1, notice when you're feeling bored and you immediately go to check your email. Number 2, notice when you're facing a really difficult task and you find yourself trying to distract yourself from the work. And number 3, notice the urge to compulsively respond to a text when you're driving. These are your prime, everyday opportunities to experiment.
When you do catch yourself in one of these moments, I want you to track your data points. You don't need a physical notebook for this. Just use your new inner scientist observation skills. Instead of getting completely clobbered by this huge, scary craving, just break it down into bite-sized physical sensations, moment to moment. Does the craving feel like a tightness in your chest? Is it tension in your shudders? Is it a restless, weird fluttering in your stomach? Just notice that these physical sensations simply come and then they go.
By tracking these sensations, you are actively building a brand new, rewired habit look. Step 1, notice the urge. Actually see the trigger and feel it happening in real time. Step 2, get curious. Lean in, investigate those exact data points of tension and restlessness instead of immediately trying to make them go away. And step 3, feel the joy of letting go, because curiosity actually feels naturally rewarding. Stepping out of our old, fear-based reactive patterns and simply observing them allows us to experience the genuine joy of being fully present. Notice the urge, get curious, feel the joy of letting go, and just repeat. We've covered the evolutionary trap, the myth of willpower, and the profound, incredible neuroscience of visceral disenchantment. You now have the exact playbook to quiet your own craving center. So I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought. What will your inner scientist discover the next time you reach for your phone? Are you going to get caught in the loop, or will you find the joy in letting go? The experiment starts right